Here we are again, another month on another docuseries drop from Netflix this time. It seems like at this point, every streaming company drops a true crime series every every other day or so, and it's all about the same thing. Like they all drop the same story, just different format, like around the same time for some reason. And the only thing that I can feel about this is just exhausted. And I say this as a true crime fan, or I used to be a true crime fan until I started having like these really like violent nightmares. Honestly, like it just doesn't feel the same. Documentaries, true crime doesn't feel the same anymore. It just feels like a spectacle, an entertainment that we're making out of the victims. It's trauma porn, basically. And when I speak about true crime, I go from like Anna Delvey, let's say, to like Jeffrey Dahmer. So really like all the definition of crime, all the documentaries that have been made out of these people or for these people reporting about these crimes. When Gabby Petito dropped, I was like, she's not even cold yet. The body's not even cold, and we are already making a documentary. Where did we leave our decency? Where did we leave like the time for people to mourn the people that they've lost before making a documentary, fleshing out, picking apart, dissecting the murder that was committed? And it just made me wonder, like, when did we become so obsessed with crime? And when did true crime become entertainment? When did it become our main entertainment? Because believe me or not, when one of these shows drop, all the internet is talking about it. Today I want to dive into why or how we became obsessed with true crime. But before that, let me present myself. Hi, my name is Steffi Fleur, and on this channel I like to analyze, dissect, and give my opinion on social cultural phenomena through a psychosocial lens. I also have a side quest where I review a specific rap artist discography. If any of this strikes a chord with you, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. But if you're not convinced, you can always consume a little bit more of my videos channel and then decide if you like it or not. If not, you can just like watch this video as well. I don't mind it. I'm just doing this for fun. Let's first start by analyzing what a documentary is. So in its nature, a documentary, it exists in the realm of news and reporting, and basically it's like a deep dive into something that is newsworthy. It can be in multiple topics in multiple spheres. You have documentaries, I don't know, about like, you have historical documentaries, you have scientific documentaries, you have true crimes, you have like many different types of documentary. But in itself, like I said, it's about going deeper, understanding an issue better, and giving information to the masses. Because unlike it's like basically a way for you to have more information about something, because usually like when you go and see the news, you have like I don't know how much like a segment can last, but it's not enough. It's not like an hour. It's really rare. So a documentary allows for that, for people to get more information about a certain topic. True crimes, I believe, and this is like kind of like an hypothesis of mine, are basically news and reporting about a crime that has happened, and the information that they will give is to basically warn people, give signs, show that these things happen and that we have to basically be careful. That's the way that I see it. In like its origin, it has changed now. So why have documentaries changed? In sociology, we basically argue that the news have become entertainment in the last few decades or so. So now it's not only about reporting and giving information to the masses, it's also about entertaining. So you have shows like the late night show that technically is kind of like news reporting, but like about celebrities, or like you have celebrity magazines and news, and like you have the hot topic or whatever, and it's going to talk about like, I don't know, like Hollywood. But is that really worth like reporting? In my opinion, not really, but whatever. So in the last few decades, sociologists basically have been criticizing the fact that journalism has turned to something that is entertaining and not necessarily fully news and like giving information to people. And obviously that's driven also because it gives money to like the company. So if more people are watching a documentary because it's viral, obviously that company is going to get more money for that and it's going to make more revenue, right? So there's that question, and I think that it absolutely exists and it's actually possible because of the capitalism world in which we live in right now. So that's why documentaries, I think, have changed their way, their optics. They don't really I don't know, traditionally, like when I would you watch documentaries, it was kind of boring. Like watching a documentary, I feel in my opinion should be a little bit boring. It should a little bit be like a little grandma activity. But now they're gonna make you have like twists and turns and what's the catch, and like in any story basically, not just like true crime. I feel like everything, or trying to entertain the people that are watching the documentary so we can make more and have more money. And if you don't believe me, I feel like we could just like literally look at the last few years and the documentaries that have been dropped and like what they talk about, specifically true crime. I really feel like true crime really tries to make it into this sort of show of like this mystery murder show. So that brings us basically to our next question, which is, why are we so obsessed with death and crime?
Oh, Wednesday's at that very special age when a girl has only one thing on her mind. Boys.
Homicide.
So obviously, I think that companies have noticed that, well, that fascinates us. So I'm going to first explain why we're so obsessed with that and then why we're so obsessed with crime. Yeah. So they obviously have seen that, like, oh my God, people are really like interested and obsessed with that. And why is that? It's because we live in a death denying society, at least in Western society. This is explained by a shift. So not so long ago, people had way more contact with dying, dead bodies, and just the concept of death, because it was not so institutionalized or medicalized. People would die at home and people would have to take care of the body. They would have to do the whole ceremony, clean the body, and then bury it. There was like not really money for people to take them to funeral homes. Historically, funeral homes are really expensive. They still are to this day. But now it's more a social norm that when somebody dies, the funeral home takes care of them because of their rules that, at least let's say here, for example, I live in Quebec, and the rules here is that if somebody dies, you have 24 hours to take them to a funeral home, because otherwise it would be considered not hygienic and just I think it's a biohazard or something like that. But it's just in the laws. You can't have a dead body in your house for more than 24 hours. And just that makes it so that you're kind of forced to be separated of a corpse really quickly. So you don't really have contact with that. And just the fact that we don't prepare the body and we don't bury it ourselves makes us be detached from that reality. So we went from like just having that in our everyday life, because not only people would die in their houses, but people also lived with older people in their houses. There would be a lot of intergenerational houses, but think about it also, the death rate was higher because the medicine was less advanced, but also that at birth or life expectancy was lower. So like there was a lot of like child death. So you would have like a lot of contact with that. And then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, things got better for human beings. There was medicine that was developed. And like I said, people, middle class developed a little bit more. So people had more money to pay for funeral houses and funeral preparations. But it also got institutionalized. Laws were passed. So now you don't really have that, and there's no really like dying people in the street. That would just be like weird. We lost the contact with that. And so our way to deal with it, or like the only contact that we have, or the primary contact that we have, is through television, through TV shows. Americans basically see that for the first time on their screen, and you see so much of it, like it's saturated of it on screen. Whatever TV show, there's always going to be somebody who's dying, or you're going to have to see somebody die. You basically see people getting killed on TV for show. So that is our only way to process that and to understand that. There's also the fact that we went from, okay, so before even saying like, oh, like we watched that in television, there was also a shift from that, because dying in television was not necessarily the norm and it was not necessarily acceptable, but there was also a shift as to how we grieve. Before, people were like expected to grieve in private, and there was no such thing as like public grieving. That was just not normal. People were not expected to do that. It was actually badly seen by society. And here, when I say society, I'm exclusively talking about Western society. So we went from like grieving in private to grieving publicly for multiple reasons. One of them is that we are like in more secular societies, so we don't have like church to go to, so we try to find connection and community through these public grievings and through these, like, I don't know, the internet that allows us to have community and mourn in a similar way that like church would help us mourn, because we have a community to reach out to. Those two things combined together, the fact that we don't have as much contact with dying bodies and that we went from a private grief to a public grief, made it so that like basically you have like people dying on TV. If you think about it, that's kind of strange. Like, somebody's playing that and like you're watching that. So now we're just like okay with it. That's like normal. It's normal, and we're kind of obsessed with it because we don't really have any other place to talk or deal with this topic of like, one day I'm gonna die and the people around me are gonna die, so we explore it through TV. Then why are we so obsessed with crime? And it kind of explains why we're also so obsessed with true crime TV. When we watch true crime, or when we watch a horror story, but now here I'm more talking about true crime, you get to explore a situation without having to live through it yourself physically. It's kind of like you vicariously live through that situation when you watch it. You get to play or toy with the idea in your head and just like entertain it basically. You can think like, oh, what would I do in that situation? How would I feel? In some, that's why we're obsessed with like that and true crime, because it allows to explore all these things that we don't get to explore anymore because we're so detached one from that and from crime. So convenient for us. It really became even more entertainment when for years and years and years we've had like TV shows. So you expect kind of the same thing from true crime documentaries. If we add those two factors together, which first is the press and news reporting becoming like a show, entertainment, and doing so for more views, more money, and then we mix it with the fact that people are obsessed with crime, with that, it makes the perfect recipe for you to have true crime miniseries that are gonna give you so much more money. It's the perfect mix. It's like people look at the news to be entertained, and we already like the fact that we can explore that in our couches, on our couches. Really, there's no like more questions to be asked here. That's why we have so many documentaries, and I think people like have like companies have caught up on that, because like, why is there so many like docu-series, so you don't only have like an hour and 30 minutes of watching that or like deep diving, but you actually have that in 3 parts. And like sometimes even turning the true crime whatever topic into a series. Like you have like basically seasons of different like crimes. This is the case, like I've seen more happen with like, let's say, serial killers. You'll have a season for a serial killer. How much more can you scream like, I'm trying to make money out of this? Eventually it just becomes boring because it's the same thing over and over, because of like how it turned into an entertainment, which naturally brings me to my next point. So when streaming companies or just companies are making profit out of crime, we're turning crime into a product. And that is insane. And obviously that exists in a neo-capitalist world where like you want to turn everything into something that you can sell. But that is insane when you think about it, and it's so problematic for so many reasons. The first one being that like it's really exploitative, and I'm not saying that like we shouldn't inform people that crime happens and that you should be aware and you should be conscious and whatever, but I don't think that it's actually healthy to be saturated of that type of content and making it like the trendy thing, because it really affects your brain. I feel like it's trauma exploiting, it's trauma porn, and you're watching this over and over and over and over. It just feels twisted and sick, like like a guilty pleasure. And I say this, and I get hooked on it as well, because I try to stop watching them the most that I can. But then like a new one drops. Like I watched the one about, I think it's Ruby Frankie, I think it's her name. I watched that one. Why? Like I already knew the story. I just wanted to hear about, it's like story time, POV story time circa 2015, the person who lived the trauma, like telling it again. It's also just repetitive. Like it's just problematic because it's always the same story told over and over, and it's always the same format as well, the way that it's told. Sometimes I've heard that like people do not get the consent to for their story to be like talked about in these documentaries, and not all of them, because I know some documentaries have the victims and survivors talking in them to inform people, and like good for them if they feel like they've consented to this, and good for them if they want to get their story out there to protect other people. But there's also other documentaries comes to my mind, like the Dahmer one, or like Ted Bundy or the Menendez brothers, where people don't necessarily get consulted because these crimes have happened such a long time ago that like they just basically talk about the crime, but they don't really consult with the victims, and people are there's still people alive that were affected by this. It reopened wounds because they have to relive these traumas, because it becomes so popular. Like it sells so much that like it becomes a new trendy thing, and then you see it everywhere, so you can't escape it. And so it just, imagine that, like you want to get over something, but people like reopen that freaking wound every 2 seconds. And not only the people who went through that crime, like I'm just thinking about people who have gone through trauma that is similar to what is talked in these docuseries, and they have to see it everywhere as well. So it's just exploitative of the trauma of people, and I don't think that that is healthy. That is not healthy. And on another topic, it's also the fact that we romanticize some of these criminals. The only criminal that like I can stand is like Anna Delvey. But if you think about it, she committed a crime and still went on to do Dancing with the Stars. She became a star from her crime and from her having a documentary. She had a docuseries. She also had just a plain series that was like depicting what happened. And like this is not the only like criminal that has had that happen to them. Like just Dahmer has a series about them, Ted Bundy as well, and the people that play them are like attractive actors. So there's people who romanticize these people, and like I said, I can only say Anna Delvey because eat the rich. But imagine like there's people romanticizing Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, to name these two only, because there's so many more that like people will like they're gonna get so like obsessive about it. I like researching this, I found out that people sometimes collect I think it's called murder memophilia. I don't know. I'll put the name, but like the clown dude that killed people and that he would paint, I think something like that. People collect his paint. That is insane work. That is devious work. Like, why are you? See what I mean? But see what I mean? Like, people will romanticize it. They will like collect it in a way, and that's like a point as well. Like, people will be like, oh, have you seen this one? Have you seen this other one? Have you seen this other crime? Like, you have to know all of the crimes. You have to know all of the things that have happened. And then it's like trying to top like the most gruesome and the most, because honestly, and I speak as a person who like watches true crime sometimes, like I'm not impressed anymore because it's so repetitive. So like I need something more gruesome, something more disturbing to hook me on and to make me watch the documentary. And it's like, that is sick, that is twisted, but like that's what like basically these documentaries have done to us, because we're like, we want more of like that high, I guess, or more of this new story, more entertainment. And there's only so many ways that you can murder someone and there's only so many ways that you can do a crime, which brings me to my last point. Can we just bring back actual news reporting, new angles, new takes, not always the same story? Like, can we like go back to the roots of like what a documentary should be? And like I said, I'm not saying that true crime is like completely a bad thing to happen, because my main example is the documentary The Program. I love the documentary. But what made me love the documentary and what made me feel like it was so innovative is the fact that it was, first of all, it was produced by one of the people that went through that program. I feel like that person really left space for the people who went through the trauma to talk, and she respected their boundaries. She went and like we discovered something new. I really feel like America didn't know about this before that document. I think Paris Hilton had talked about it a little bit, but I really feel like the program made it even more concrete as like what was happening in these places, in these schools. The other one that I feel like was really interesting was Dancing with the Devil. This was about a cult, and I once again I feel like it's because first there was space for the victims to talk about it, about what had happened, in their own terms, as well as I feel like it gave both the program and Dancing with the Devil gave back the power to the survivors, because you see them go through this journey of healing. But also it really exposed, and that, oh yeah, so that's my main point, like it exposes something new. And the point of a report, or like the point of like news, should be exposing something new to the person who watches it, so they are aware of something new. And that is exactly what the program did. I wanted to make basically a video reviewing the program. If that interests you, like let me know, I will like review it, because I really love the documentary, like I said. But the format wasn't the same, and the point wasn't to have like the twist and the turn. The format was to really bring to people the information and to reveal something that America didn't know. But what can I say? This is Hollywood. This is America. America will always try to find a way to make something into a product. It's their whole motto. It's their, I think, their values. It's at their core, very neo-capitalistic. And now they have that the guy there that is like not doing better, and like that is basically the embodiment of that, of capitalism and of like product selling. Like he's a businessman. So what do we think is going to happen with documentaries? Are you guys getting bored of the documentaries? Let me know. Do you feel like it's repetitive? Am I the only one feeling this? Am I the only one feeling like it's like really trauma porn? And oh wow, thing I forgot to mention also, I feel like it's not only like streaming services. One like YouTube channel that I really feel is really exploitative of victim is soft white underbelly, I think it's called. Let me check. And I know somebody else made like a video about this, and I found it so interesting, so I'm gonna put it up like here. I'm gonna put a link to it because I feel like it's really interesting. Yeah, soft white underbelly. Soft white underbelly. I feel like they're really exploitative to a certain point because it sells. It really sells. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, let me know what you think is gonna happen to documentaries, because even like on YouTube, like you have people like trying to open spaces for victims and open space for awareness. Yet I think that they kind of like fail to do so because they see how much money it brings to them and how much they can do with like trauma porn. Let me know if you like this video, your opinions, your thoughts. I love to hear your thoughts on a topic. I'll see you guys later. I don't know what later means, and I always say this in my outros because for me, a video can be in the making for like a year, but I'm still gonna like try and put things out more. So anyways, see you later guys. Bye bye.